Today I'm going to be ranking my top 10 roller coasters in the world. I'm doing this now as it's definitely going to change over this year a lot. I'm excited to see which new credits I gain and how they compare to my current ones. Since I live in the UK, most of my credits come from here, with a few exceptions. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing for more content like this and vlogs in the future, because 2025 is going to be a big year for this channel and a big year for me. But prepare yourself, because my opinions can be very controversial. But with that out of the way, let's get into my top 10 roller coasters as of January 2025. Coming in at number 10, we have Wicker Man at Alton Towers. This GCI family coaster opened in 2018, and although it's only a family coaster, the further you sit back on this ride, the more thrilling it is, and it has some decent speed and airtime throughout the layout. But what really makes this ride for me is the theming, with the main bit being the Big Bob statue in the center of the ride, which you pass through 3 times, and he has fire effects on his shoulders. These effects make Wicker Man one of the best family coasters and one of the best wooden coasters out there, in my opinion. The theming on Wicker Man is great, from the queue line to the pre-show to the actual ride experience. What also makes this coaster is the unique experiences I've had with it. I've had many night rides, many back row rides in the rain, and I got to experience it during the fireworks, which was absolutely incredible. Wicker Man is a great ride and definitely deserves to be in my top 10. But moving on to number 9, we have Uncharted at Portaventura World, Spain. This intimate multi-dimensional coaster, which opened this year, is truly one of the best family coasters out there, which includes multiple launches, a spike, and even a backwards drop. The one downside to this dark ride is the theming. With the queue line being heavily themed, the actual ride lacks a lot, with most of the theming being screens and a few rocks. But the technology on this ride alone makes it my number 9. And I really do hope Intamin brings more of these rides around the world, because they are so fun. I really do think this coaster gets overlooked because it's brand new and not a lot of people have experienced it yet. Another downside to this ride is you do get flashbanged by the ride camera. Because you're in complete darkness, when this ride camera takes a photo, you cannot see for the next 5 seconds, and it really hurts my eyes. But the pacing on this ride is perfect, the length is perfect, and if it had better theming, it would definitely be higher on this list. But coming in at number 8, we have Icon at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. This Mack multi-launch coaster opened in 2018 at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, which later on received a spinning seat as an upcharge attraction. I have not experienced the spinning seat yet, but I hope to experience it this year, which may put it higher up on my list. Going off the basic ride experience, you get some decent airtime, the launches aren't too weak, and it's overall just a great, fun coaster. This ride isn't heavily themed, but has a stylized look. My one downside to this ride being the length, which is just a little bit too long. The pacing of the first half is absolutely brilliant, but the second half just dies off and drags out a little bit. That's definitely not a bad problem to have. Aside from that, Icon is a great launch coaster and my favourite at the whole park. I don't think Icon is overlooked because of its location, but if you set that aside, it's definitely one of the best coasters in the UK. But with that out of the way, coming in at number 7, we have Swarm at Thorpe Park. This B&M wing coaster opened at the park in 2012, and it's one of the best wing coasters out there. The theming on this thing is absolutely insane, and probably the best in the UK, with loads of crashed vehicles and the station being a destroyed church. This ride also has an amazing storyline and really comes to life at night time. You start off the ride getting amazing hang time off the lift hill. Although this ride can be kind of forceless, the inversions it has and the pacing throughout is absolutely world class. And I love riding the Swarm and gliding over the massive queue below, since it always gets a big queue, because of the absolutely car crash operations on this ride. But aside from that, it's a very good ride, and in my top 3 at the park. It may not be the fastest, the highest, the most intense, but again, it's just a very fun ride, which is a common theme on my list. I don't really care about height, I just care about how fun the ride is. So moving on, in number 6, we have Nemesis at Alton Towers, which includes Nemesis Reborn and the original, because I rate them about the same. This B&M invert was one of the first of its kind, and is iconic around the world, which is why Alton Towers decided to reborn it in 2024, including a full retrack, retheme, and new storyline. But this ride truly comes alive at night time, with the theming top notch. From the lighting to the water to the smoke effects, this ride is just absolutely incredible at night time. My one downside on this coaster is whatever row you get really depends your ride experience, and it can be overhyped. But at number 5 we have Stealth at Thorpe Park, which holds the record for the world's fastest accelerating roller coaster after Dodo Dumpy closed at Fuji-Q Island. This Intamin hydraulic coaster is one of the best launches out there. With a height of 205 foot, it's definitely not the tallest, but the height doesn't matter on this ride. It's a pure adrenaline kick when you have that launch, especially front row. I just can't describe it. The launch is so powerful, you feel yourself lifting out of the seat, you get airtime at the top of the top hat, and a massive airtime hill coming into the brake room. This one-trick pony ride is one of the best out there, and they're starting to slowly close around the world, so I get worried about Stealth's future, but I hope it stays at the park for many years to come. But moving on to my number 4, we have Smiler at Alton Towers. This prototype coaster from Gerstlauer was very enthusiastic, with it holding the record of the most inversions anywhere in the world to this day. Smiler's theme really builds the anticipation, but the troubled history means this ride does get a bad rep. Aside from that, people can say it's too rough, but I personally don't find it rough at all. In my opinion, the Smiler is the best roller coaster at Alton Towers, full stop. Each inversion on this ride is very well done, you get some great airtime, and overall it's just the full package. But coming in at number 3 we have Red Force at Ferrari Land, Spain, which holds the title of the world's fastest and tallest roller coaster at the time of filming this. With a speed of 112 miles an hour and a height of 350 foot, this ride is absolutely insane. The Spanish heat really adds to the intensity of this ride, which makes every other row than front row quite shaky, which is my one downside to this attraction. The LSM launch that Intamin managed to create in 2017 is absolutely world class and makes it worthy of my top 3 alone. As these rides are starting to go extinct around the world, I'm glad Red Force exists and it's relatively new, so it should have a longer shelf life. But coming in number 2 we have Shambala at Portaventura World. This B&M hypercoaster is definitely one of the best out there, with many people saying it's B&M's best ever creation. Opening in 2012 and standing over 200 foot, this coaster is an absolute beast. With many intense moments, ejector and floater airtime, this ride is super long, which is why it's so high up. You get a long quality experience and it doesn't drag out at all. This ride from start to finish is an insane experience, and the area of China surrounding it really adds. The interactions between both B&Ms are absolutely insane, and there's nothing quite like it around the world. Shambhala also has a decent theme, which is why it's so high up, because it's very hard to theme a hypercoaster. And as I've had near 50 rides on both my number 1 and 2, I can comfortably say that my number 1 is Hyperia at Thorpe Park. This Mack Rides coaster is honestly their best creation to date. Aside from the extremely loud lift hill, the 4 elements this ride does are absolutely world class. The only downside to this ride is it's slightly short, but the pacing on it is absolutely incredible. You plummet down possibly the world's best drop, going up into an absolutely massive immlement full of airtime, then going down into an outer bank which rolls back down so intensely, then go up into the probably longest stool in the world before going down into a splashdown and a wave dash. You then loop back into an airtime hill and back to the station. Overall, this ride is just perfection. It's an absolute spectacle of ride. Hyperia is the standout coaster that the UK needed, and it's why it's my number 1. But if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to subscribe for more content like this and vlogs coming in the near future. 2025 is going to be a big year for me, full of new creds, and that's why this list will change a lot. So stay tuned for park vlogs, POVs, reviews, and more content like this. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave in the comments your top 10 and what you thought about my ratings of these coasters.